Do you guys actually even like listening to podcasts, especially when it's coming from HR, knowing that people assume that all we do is hire and fire? And do you guys even know that HR is actually the most difficult job?
Oh my God, talk about it. The annoying thing for me is that people think that HR is like the easiest thing.
Hi everyone, my name is Ibijoke.
Hi, and my name is Precious.
The other side of HR is here to bridge the gap between employer, employee, stakeholders in general.
Sometimes I think that people forget that HR are also employees.
This podcast is here to bridge that gap, share actionable insights on issues that either an employer and employee might be facing.
Would you say that you ever had to work with any horrible boss?
Me as a person, I have had to deal with a dictator. These are managers who it is either their way or the highway.
To be very honest, it's one thing for people to say that they have horrible bosses, but it's another thing to know that employees can be horrible people.
Let me bust your head. I know somebody who told me, because I think one day, I was complaining to her, about how our line manager would be calling me at odd hours, and all of that. And she was like, okay. She said it was 6 p.m. She blocks him and she blocks him in 7 a.m. the following day. She said, because that man cannot come and kill me. You're welcome to our podcast, The Other Side of HR. Hi everyone, my name is Ibijoke.
Hi, and my name is Precious.
And you're welcome to our podcast, The Other Side of HR. Do you guys actually even like listening to podcasts? Especially when it's coming from HR, knowing that people assume that all we do is hire and fire.
And that we're the enemies of the people and we're tools for the management.
Well, anyways, the other side of HR is here to bridge the gap between employer, employee, stakeholders in general. Because through the years, what we've noticed is that, sometimes, employees don't know how to deal with employers don't know how to deal with employees, and it's almost as if, there's just always this collusion. So this podcast is here to break that gap, share actionable insights, on issues that, either an employer and employee might be facing.
Beyond that, we also want to be as relatable as possible. Because sometimes I think that people forget that HR are also employees. It's almost as if you guys forget that we also are collecting this salary that we're all collecting, and we're working for people just like, the everyday people in other departments. So this podcast promises to be very relatable, showing you, what it feels like to be an employee, what it feels like to be an employer, and also what it feels like to interact with, government bodies and other stakeholders.
Exactly. And do you guys even know that HR is actually the most difficult job
Oh my
in the
God,
workplace?
talk about it. The annoying thing for me is that people think that HR is like the easiest thing. Everyone's like, I'm tired of working here. Maybe
Let me come to HR.
I'm like, bro, please stop playing.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy. Like HR is the unsung hero
Always.
of every organization. But again, I do understand that people have had like very terrible experience with other human resource professionals. And because of that experience, they hold on to it and be like, all HR everywhere,
Terrible. Yeah.
And so that's why sometimes it's quite jaded. But it's also very important that we're having this podcast, because we also are going to be telling you what true, unbiased HR management should look like.
And fun facts, Precious and I actually work together.
Yeah, she's my young manager. And it brings us to the topic that we're talking about today, horrible bosses in the workplace. Joker, do you think you're a horrible boss to me?
Absolutely not. If I was, you would not be sitting here with me on this podcast.
Guys, it's gone to my head. So I really can't answer that. But let's move on. Okay. So far, in your years of experience, would you say that you ever had to work with any horrible boss?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the first thing is recognize that this is actually a major issue in the workplace. And to be honest, it's probably never going to go away. But to your question, yes, I have. And I think that the first thing to also do is also identify the type of horrible boss, because there are different types. They're not all the same. They come in different ways. But however, I think that the ones that I'm very familiar with are the micromanager, the dictator, the inconsistent boss, and I think the absent boss. Me as a person, I have had to deal with a micromanager and a dictator. And let me speak about the dictator one. So pretty much these are managers who it is either their way or the highway. They are not interested in your feedbacks and they don't want to collaborate with you, right? These types of people, right? I think that the best way to deal with them would always be to document your issues and conversations, right? Because let's not forget that as an HR, you're an advisor. That's major.
That's all our work, to be honest.
We are here to give you advice on labor, right? Employee perspective, right? And even though it's your business, right, you have a way in which you want to deal with it and all of that. But I'm here to advise you, based on best practices. based on labor law, no, based on all those sort of things, right? But like I said, these bosses they don't want to listen to that. So I've had to deal with somebody like that, who literally, from remuneration conversations, from performance conversations, to employee relations, disciplinary issues and those kind of things, but he just never wanted to listen most of the time. So what I'd always did was that, I always just ensured that I documented things. So whatever it is that I told him, if I was saying no to them, I always ensure that, he was giving me his feedback documented as well, so that, it's not a case of, this jockey is just here, doesn't know what she's doing. But eventually, I feel like with dictators, because after time, most of them don't usually listen. So I think that the best thing to do would be to be planning your exit.
What broke the camel back for you? Like, what situation did you have that made you say, "Oh, you know what, I'm leaving this dictator"?
Okay, so for me, I think it was more or less around empathy. I realized that this man had no single bone of empathy in him, right? Employees would be ill, right? And you would get so upset, and, employees probably even send you pictures, of them, on the sick bed or something, and you say things like, okay, that's fine. But as long as you're coming into the office today, right? And it happened with people, right? But however, I would defend them and say, okay, no, don't worry, I got you, I would talk to him and all of that, and I always got the backlash for, but at least, I was happy that at least, they were. But then when it happened to me, I had a really bad toothache, right? So I had to go to the hospital, right? So I'd gone the day before, but unfortunately he wasn't properly done, right? So instead of them to, I had a hole in my teeth. They were supposed to take it out, but unfortunately they had filled it, but that's what they were supposed to do. So I had pains. So the following day I had to go back, right? So I called him to say, oh, I'm not going to come to work today. I have to go to the dentist. And it's like, oh, that's fine. But as long as you make sure that you come back to the office today.
For real?
Yes. And this is me, your HR that, never absent, always at work, those kind of stuff, and all of that. And I was like, no, this isn't going to work for me. Do you get what I mean? And I feel like, I'd been thinking of leaving, but like you said, that was what
broke the back for you.
Because empathy goes a long way. But I just realized that, that wasn't going to work for me. Yeah. So that was it for me. What about you? Have you ever had to do with anyone difficult?
So directly, never. I've never had like a difficult line manager, to be honest. And to be honest, I feel like I have just been blessed. I worked with, I think, 8 to 9 people directly, and all of them had been amazing people, right? So all my line managers, I love you.
Love you too.
Everyone I've worked with, to be honest, I really loved them. They are good examples of who leaders, should be. Right. So directly, I've never had to deal with a difficult boss, but like I've had stories. I know people who had to work with difficult people in the same organization. So this will bring us to talking about the types of difficult, bosses that you could have in an organization and maybe ways to work around it. Jessica, do you want to start?
Okay, so like I mentioned, I think I know about 4. We have the micromanager, we have the dictator, like I just talked about. We have the inconsistent boss, and we have the absent boss. So the micromanager basically is the one who's constantly checking in on you, calling you, messaging you, what's up, how far, this and all of that, right? And then we have the dictators who, this one, like I said, they don't collaborate with you. It's their way. Whatever they say is that's it. And then we have the inconsistent boss. These ones are very terrible with feedbacks. And they also lack clear expectations. So even you as an employee or as a team member, you are confused on what exactly the requirements are or what exactly you're supposed to be doing for them.
And you know why? I feel like these type of bosses are the worst, right? I feel like all at the worst, but like
and they're the most common ones, in my opinion.
Today they'll tell you, this is how I want you to do this. Tomorrow,
it's something else.
It's never this is the standard and this is what we should do.
And it's why documentation is key.
But with people that are inconsistent,
you're right. Okay. Changes. I didn't say that. And I think that this is where we have issues with onboarding. This is where we have issues with new employees who along the line have terrible experiences, because most of the time, they don't actually have clear expectations from their line managers. And I think that a lot of employees also don't know that, if your line manager is not collaborative with you, you can always come to HR. Because I always tell people that, HR is there because of people, in as much as we are advisors, right? But, we are also here for you as well. Because, I've been HR for a couple of years, and then I've seen issues around confirmation conversations where a line manager has done an appraisal for an employee is like, this was not what you told me.
Exactly.
This wasn't communicated. And the line manager will be like, oh, well, this is the new. And I'm like,
that's not the process. That's absolutely not the process.
So that's that. And then the fourth one I think I'm also aware about would be the absent boss. These ones, they're never around. You are calling them, they're not answering you. You are messaging them, they're not answering. However, they want the job done. So with these ones, there are no expectations. There's no feedback. There is no scope. So it's almost like you're in a limbo.
You're just flying solo. But funny enough, I feel like, maybe I'm the word person, but I feel like this is the best type of terrible boss you can work with.
The absent ones.
Yes, if you're a self-starter. Because it challenges you to do things on your own.
But my dear, even if you're a self-starter, if you don't have a clear scope, if you don't have regular feedback, what are they going to do for you?
They're terrible. But again, in my head, right? I feel like if you have people like that, it's on you to now say, oh, get across, network with the right people in the industry that knows what you're doing. You're also reading, you're also trying to do better, right? It gives you the urge or the push to actually do better for your own self.
And I don't doubt that. I buy the idea. But however, I feel like that would just be a waste of time if there is no collaboration.
Sure.
Because even if I've done some work, no matter how intelligent I am or whatever it is, right? If I have someone that I report to, right, I'm supposed to, what's the word?
Run
ideas. Exactly. So in my own head, I could have done something fantastic, but instead it could be like, what is this? Oh no. Or however, this is how I want. So trust me. But to be honest, none of them is actually good.
None of them, to be honest. None of them. But let's start with the micromanagers.
And how to deal with them, right?
Yes.
So for the micromanagers, in my opinion, right, these ones are people who you have to do the over communication. Always give them feedback, right? And even with these ones, especially and the micromanager, most of them actually are people who would actually even always offer to have a one-on-one with you, right? So
every single day, by the way, which I find annoying. It's like, let's touch up. Let's catch up. Leave me alone. Please, just leave me alone.
But however, if that's the case with these ones, right, what you need to do, right, is to over communicate. Yeah. So when I'm saying that, I mean that, you would pick a certain time during the day where you want to give them the feedback, right? And please, the feedback has to be the feedback of value. It's not feedback of, oh, I went to the bank to go and pay money. I've paid, I've done payroll. No. Because you know that at the beginning of the year, especially if it's from a leadership side, maybe if you're a team lead or you're in a senior position, right? You have to communicate value, what have you done end to end, this is what I have done, and make it as clear as possible. And also ensure that you are also providing value, also providing something that that the person wants to hear. So for instance, maybe it's a revenue generating role or whatever, numbers.
Sure.
Just know that you have to be speaking numbers. You can't be speaking, oh, the customer came in today, they bought one shoe, let him know how much you have made at the end of the day. Also compare it with your target, what you're those kind, they're very clear, trust me. And I think that with these kinds of people, if you regularly communicate with them, and like I said, communicate value and be clear, you honestly, even you, eventually self, you won't even see it as micromanaging anymore. And they will not even be on your neck anymore. Because honestly, the Bible will never have anything
to say, to
call you for.
Because you have given them all that information. Clarity is very key. And like Joke had said, communication. Sometimes micromanagers are just people that didn't have friends as children, Where
did you hear that one from?
I created it. Growing up, they didn't have friends. So now they have people reporting to them and it's like, oh, I want to talk to you.
So many people.
I want to be in your life, and all that. So it's like, if you're willing and able to, first of all, like Joke has said, you need to always identify who your boss is, what kind of boss. Even your good boss, right? There are very amazing bosses that are very number-centric, right? If you're going to report to them, like Joke has said, you won't come and be saying, I went to the market, I went to this. It's like, oh, the attrition rate is this. This rate is that. Oh, okay, so our payroll numbers has increased from this to this because we had the so number of people join us at the beginning of the month. It's the little things. And to be honest, right? To be very honest, it's one thing for people to say that they have horrible bosses, but it's another thing to know that employees can be horrible people.
Oh my God, don't get me started.
Employees can be so horrible and entitled. And I'm not removing myself because sometimes, as an employee, I know that I can be a lot. But we employees, we actually can be a lot.
And we need to do better.
We do need to do better. So that it's okay, they think that, oh, your boss is horrible, your boss is this, but you also need to introspect and think, are you horrible? Are you the problem? Are you the drama, You need to also just understand where the issue is coming from. Is my boss really the horrible person or am I the horrible person? Do I know what I am doing? Am I doing what's expected on the role?
True.
Because to be honest, right, I've seen a lot of line managers that have been frustrated.
Oh my God.
Guys, I'm laughing because oh my God.
Oh my God.
Very personal. It can be very, very frustrating, right? It's one thing for us to expect, a lot from our bosses and our line managers. But we as employees, we as people that report to people, we also need to do better. So for micromanagers, for people who are actually currently, having issues with micromanagers as boss, how would you say they go about solving this issue?
So, like I've mentioned, communication, effective communication, and all of that, And also, I think that you also need to manage expectations, right? In terms of, understanding your boss's priorities. You know your boss, you know what he wants here, you know what you want. Those are the things that you should be communicating to him. Understand so that you can know what to do. Because if you don't understand the person, if you don't know what they want, if you don't know their requirements, even your communication is just going to be
noise.
It's just going to be noise. And that might even end up even making them micromanage you the more. So just understand your boss, and understand their priorities, like I've mentioned. And then another thing would also be set boundaries as well. Because some micromanagers, they can call you at maybe 11 p.m., 10. They don't want to know. They call you at all hours, very early in the morning, But however, as an employee, right, I'm not saying you should be rude to your boss, but you need to be professional in, maybe, you could proffer a solution where you probably say, is it okay for us to have a meeting at 2:00, for us to be able to debrief on whatever it's and all that? Because if not, they would, and trust me, you won't even get any work done.
True.
But like I said, some micromanagers, trust me, you don't have to be the one to offer a one-on-one solution to them. They would call, but however, even calling defeats the purpose. Because, if you're setting a specific time to have a debrief, to have your one-on-one conversations, right? It actually does more good for you, right? Because there, you know that this period is for this. So whatever it is that you want to discuss, you're discussing it there. So you as well, go to that meeting with all of your bullet points as well, with things that you need feedbacks on, the things that you need to try. And when you are done, so there's something that somebody taught me, they call it covering your ass, right? So basically, when you're done with the meeting, you do a recap. Mm-hmm. In fact, my current line manager taught me that you do a recap of what you have done, of what you guys have discussed, right? The action points, and the due dates. You do it and send it back to the person, and then they acknowledge, So at least it's documented. So at least, when they're saying, oh, this, we're like, but this is what we discussed. Mm-hmm. And Precious is very good at doing that thing. Oh my God. I say, oh, Precious said, oh, but Jackie, this is not what I'm like. I said, Precious just go to the email. Send it to me.
But I didn't I'm very good at that. Let's not talk too much. Let the evidence speak for us. So when you're talking about boundaries, right? Just reminding me of a story. My friend who got married to his wife, had said that his wife line manager by 11 p.m. We're calling his wife, right? So one night, he just collected the phone from her. This woman is a married woman. Is there a reason why you're still calling her?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, sometimes we all know the right things to do, but like in the idea of, oh, you want to be a manager, you want to be this, you do the, but there's a married woman and you'll be calling her by like 11 p.m., right? So
let me bust your head. I know somebody who told me, we used to work together a very long time ago, who told me that, because I think one day, I was complaining to her, about how our line manager would be calling me at odd hours, and all of that. And she was like, Joke? She said, Joke, once it's 9 p.m., I block him.
Straight up.
She said, what? No, what am I saying? She said, once it's 6 p.m., she blocks him and she unblocks him 7 a.m. the following day. She said, because that man cannot come and kill me.
To be honest.
So, yes. So, you're actually very correct, because some of them, and to be fair, or let me just play devil's advocate, right? They probably don't even know they're doing anything wrong. In their mind, they're trying to get the job done.
Sure. I
said it earlier that, a lot of all these bosses, right, they probably don't think they're doing anything wrong. A lot of them see it as a position of power. I'm powerful, I can do this, right? Mm-hmm. While some of them genuinely are just trying to get the work done.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the reason why, you also as an employee, for your own mental well-being, also have to set boundaries. But like I said in my earlier conversation, right, we've given some solutions to how to manage these kinds of people, right? But however, let's also know when to leave. Because some bosses will just never listen. Some bosses are just a natural nightmare. Mm-hmm. They will just never listen. So please know when to leave. When it is affecting your mental health, when you think that you're no longer productive, when you're not even happy going to work anymore, please start to plan your exits.
True. I feel like we've all flogged micromanagers. Let's go to
the dictator.
Okay. So there was this time where I was working, I don't call them what they're usually. But I was working at an organization. that had a Lebanese as the operation manager, right? At the operation, I was working in the human resource department, right? So again, I had my manager and all that. So the Lebanese didn't really affect me. But this man would literally just wake up, fire this person, give this person money letter.
They didn't have HR.
No, now he would come to the HR department.
Dictator. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Fire this person. My HR manager then will be like, he's late now, so may he so rest a bit. I'm like, what did the person do? And to be honest, right, I feel like that's the first time I ever worked with like any white person.
Yeah.
Right? And so it didn't just read, I couldn't just understand why he would never really have a reason. Like they didn't greet him very well. They're not greeting.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you. They're not and he was the only Lebanese, only non-Nigerian in that organization at that time. So he kind of felt like a demigod.
Was it not the business?
No, he was just an operation manager, to be honest.
Or expatriate in my head, right?
Expatriate, yeah. So he would come, do this way, do that this way. The HR operation team, they were frustrated, right?
I can imagine.
And so the HR department became a buffer. You know, the man would come, my HR manager was saying, no, that's not a reason. What exactly did they do? And if he gives a very flimsy reason, the HR manager will tell the person to go back to work. There's no case here. Again, the operations manager and the HR manager started having like fracas because it was like,
definitely,
this person isn't doing. So that has been like my very, that's the only experience I've seen with someone who is very, my way must go, my way must go, my way must go. And to be honest, let me tell you why sometimes you really do have to address these things. The operation team staged a protest.
Oh, for real?
Right, down tools, they were not working. And it was a hotel. It was a hotel of a very influential person, right? And it was crazy, to be honest, because they had to bring in people, to come, shut down the hotel for a bit, try to sort the issue, although they sent the operation manager away and all that. But it's like the kind of things that can happen when, you do not address things like this as at when due. It's crazy.
And then another thing that I feel like we should, because I know that okay, we mentioned different types of bosses. I'm sure that there are more, but however, these are the ones that we have identified, right? But I feel like, just to shed more light on how to handle all of them generally, right? I think that we'll go a very long way, if we effectively communicate when you understand the type of boss that you're working with, and then you're able to manage them, Also, like I mentioned, set boundaries as well. Please set boundaries. But please be professional when you're setting boundaries. It's not the boundary that you set and they will have to fire you.
but again, how do you manage a dictator? Because I feel like I hear you when you say, I should communicate with
for a dictator, you have to document. Document. Yes, you've said I should fire this person, but however, based on best practice, based on labor laws, we cannot do that. These are the procedures to follow. Fire the person is on record.
And this only applies when it's the CEO. If it's one manager, it doesn't apply. It only applies when we're talking about the owner of the business. Because again, like Joke said, we are in an advisory position, right? It's not my father's business, right? Because to be honest, they can also fire us.
Haven't you seen HRs get fired all the time?
All the freaking
because they always assume that we are I too know. ITK holier than thou. Always doing for real. Absolutely. In fact, that my former boss when I said that I had to leave. He told me one day, he said, I will fire you. This is my company, not your company.
Exactly.
You will not tell me what to do in my organization.
And
who do you think you are?
The problem is.
In his words, who do you think you are?
Can you imagine?
You're this small girl. That's telling me how to do my business.
Can you imagine?
What are you talking about? Yes.
That's where the problem is, to be very honest. And that's where the problem is. And so I do agree with the documenting, right? When you're working with someone who feels his way is the right way, document. Say, okay, you feel this is the right way. That's fine. I'm documenting this to tell you that this is what I think is the right way, but you say we should do this. Can you approve on the email that we can proceed?
Then I think that's one very important thing. I also feel like we've also missed, and this is also from the employee side, right? I mean, we're yet talking about difficult bosses, right? Employees also seek feedback as well.
Key.
Your line manager micromanaging you too. It's probably because he doesn't trust your output. He doesn't trust your work. Maybe he's empowered you
to do some things,
and you haven't done it properly. You also seek feedbacks. What am I doing well? What am I not doing well? Is there a way you like me to do something? Do you get what I'm saying? You also seek feedback. Because if you also seek feedback, it also shows that you're also being proactive. You also want to learn. You also want to grow as well, So like you said earlier, about employees, most of the times, it's not always on this line manager. So some team members, are also a pain in the neck. So please, if you notice that your boss is acting some kind of way towards you, seek clarity, seek feedback. What's going on? What am I doing wrong? What would you like me to improve on? And those kind of conversations.
I agree.
And document too.
I totally agree with it. You know that, right? There are some bosses that, maybe the employee is not the problem, but like the line manager doesn't just like the employee.
That one self-day.
Your employee is doing all the employee can actually do, doing his work very well. Okay, maybe the person makes some mistake. The line manager doesn't even give you feedback. Just like berates the person, insults the person, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't tell the person this is what you need to do to be better. And doesn't treat the person, as he would treat another person in the department that the person is like. So it's crazy, right?
But at that point, you need to escalate to each other.
So that's what I was coming to. So again, right? I feel that it's important to state that employees should know that HR should be like your best friend.
Even though we're not friends, right?
Exactly. But HR should be like your best friend in that when you have issues, you're not gossiping. You're going to relay a complaint to say, oh, my line manager is saying so or doing so. I don't really understand why. Explain to the HR because a lot of times
come with evidence, so
Exactly.
document. So don't just come and tell me word of mouth.
Yeah. It's always very important to do because again, you know that people can be funny. For instance, I create a report and I send to you, and you tell me that, oh, Precious, this is not what I want, and maybe you've told me what what you wanted me to do, and I didn't do it very well. I come back to you, I didn't do it very well. Again, I come back to you, I didn't do it very well. And I go to HR. My manager doesn't like me. Every time I do a work, my manager just says
now you're on your own.
So again, it has to have like substance. Do you understand?
Every substance, by the way, substantial substance.
It
You get what?
just be like, oh, maybe my manager looks at me in a type of way and I don't like it. No, it has to be on the job, right? It has to be on the job. You always have to be certain that you're giving your 100, right? And when you're now having issues, please escalate to the human resource department. And this is going out to all the human resource department that are not doing their job very well, that is giving HR a bad name. Fix up.
Take notes.
Do better. Do better.
Take notes.
To be very honest.
Okay, so another area that I think that we should also talk about in also managing difficult bosses would be to ensure that you're also managing your emotions as well. Whatever your line manager does to you, you have to always be calm. Do you get what I'm saying? You have to always be calm, Hopefully, it's not a situation where your line manager maybe has to hit you, all those kind of things, Thankfully, I haven't worked in those kind of organizations before, so honestly.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram and I'll tell you how Joke has been hitting me.
So, guys, please, always manage your emotions as well. Emotional intelligence is also very key. Emotional intelligence is also very, 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 very key, You have to, ensure that, whatever the problem is, right, always ensure that you are seeking a positive outcome. It's not a fight. Do you get what I'm saying? No, it's not a fight. No, it's not, it's not war. Whatever it is going on, I know that it is easier said than done, especially if you have a line manager who aggravates you, who wants to make you tear your shirt and, and jump on the table, but please, guys, let's ensure to always keep it together. Just ensure, if you need to walk away, for a minute, go to the toilet, sit down, shed a tear or two, some of us have work best friends, whatever it is, colleagues, that are close, they can just go to somebody and just bear your mind. You know how they say that, a problem shared is outsourced. So please, guys, let's also ensure to also manage our emotions as well. I think that's pretty much, I was going to say self-care, but I feel like I already also infused that in what I just said now. Yeah.
Okay. Just to run down again, remember that we've talked about 4 different types of terrible bosses.
Talked about the dictator, the micromanager, the absent boss, and the inconsistent ones. But these are just a few, guys. I'm sure there's a whole lot more.
It's also important to say.
It's probably the mad one.
On the side note, it's possible that one boss can be all these 4 things.
Ooh, that would be crazy.
That would be crazy. You can live with that. I mean, I'm telling you love.
You should just resign.
I'm telling you love.
Abort mission straight.
Okay, whole lot. But remember that communication is key. No matter the type of boss you're working with, communication is key. Also document. Even if you're working with a micromanager, document. If you're working with an inconsistent person, document. Always document, everything so that there's always going to be proof that, oh, this and that and that and that is what you've done. So also effective communication, right? Clear, concise communication is very key. You need to seek feedback, like Joke has spoken about. Like, I'm very big on feedback. I really like to know when I have done something well, or if I haven't done it well, tell me what I haven't done very well, and ask me, show me what I need to do. To be honest, I really see myself as a self-starter, Joke, right? If you tell me what to do once, I will do it I would not need you to always come back and say the same thing over and over again. And I do believe that there are people like that. Although there are also people who are very not as quick to grab things, right? But if you keep giving them this feedback, they would pick up. Like the cat said, setting boundaries is very key. I started my career in logistics, right? And to be honest, there's really no close time in logistics per se, because you have people on the road at every point in time. And so I myself really used to be the person that you could call by 2 a.m. and I'll wake up, I'm like, okay, yeah, what do you need? And I'm always doing that, right? But again,
Because you got used to that at your
but
logistic
something I'm
business.
working on and understanding that I need to have a life outside of work. I need to be able to say no when you are calling me at a time that is inconvenient for me. I need to be able to, again, be kind. If it's something you can do at that point in time, yes, please do. If it's something that, would help your organization also at that point in time, yes, please do it. But if it doesn't work for you, if it's going to be inconvenient for you, please do the right
Always know
thing.
when to say no. I think we missed that.
Yes. Always know when to say no.
But I think that comes with setting boundaries, actually.
Yes. Always knowing when to say no is very, very key. Then the most important thing, when you are tired, walk away. There is no job that's
What is indispensable?
Your life, your mental health, or even your physical health, right? Because a lot of times, we always emphasize mental. There are jobs that really destroys your back. There are jobs that, destroys your posture, and all that, So again, when it is a lot, it is a lot. When you cannot take it, you cannot take it. So it's like, start planning, get another job, get something to do, leave that environment. What you allow, you become. You find yourself complaining, oh, my life manager is, but you start to see that this even dirty character that you are complaining, you start to
also,
So it's important that first of all, you know that this is not the kind of person I want to be. This is not the kind of place I want to even be working. So it's like, what is the plan for me? How do I start living here to ensure that I'm not becoming this person or that person or blah, blah, blah. And yes, that is all the steps that you need to, take care of yourself, work with terrible bosses, and exit.
I hope that you guys have had a very insightful couple of minutes listening to us. If there's any suggestions for us, there are particular topics that you guys would like us to discuss, we will leave our email address at the end of the podcast so that you can send us emails and all of that. And also, if you also have questions as well, we could always respond to you through email or via DM, whatever it is. Follow us on Instagram, The Other Side of HR.
For our email address is theothersideofhr@gmail.com. Please follow us on Instagram. Put a face to who's talking to you. And I promise to make Joke make a lot of reels.
She actually bullies me into making reels.
Right? And so you see her dancing and doing all that. Again, let's remember that yes, we want to work. Yes, we want to make money. But our health, the time spent with our family is more important than all these things. So let's try to imbibe good culture, ensure that we ourselves are not the problem. I really like to say that. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, my manager is this, but like, what about you? Right? We're not the problem, but if we're certain that we're not the problem and if our line manager, let's try to get out of that situation so that you don't end up being a bitter person
eventually.
All right, that brought us to the end of this episode. It has been so much fun talking with you guys.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye.